Can everyone take their seats, please? Good morning. We're going to be starting now.
Yeah, just leave the purple pen there. Just one.
Stay there. Don't go. All right. Kevin and Barney, and we're here, and we're ready to start. And we start always with the Pledge of Allegiance, please, to the flag, which is there. Let's do introduction.
Yes.
You are?
Oh, so good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Burke, and I am acting chair of the Greenway Conservancy.
I'm Aileen Rohr, and I'm the supervisor at Hyde Park.
Andy Bicking, Scenic Hudson.
Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey, Ulster County, and Greenway Conservancy Secretary.
Johanna Yon, Orange County Historian.
Ed Ames, Communities Council, representing Bronx.
Frank Rooney, Department of Agriculture and Marketing.
Jane Daniels, Conservancy Board.
Karen Strong, singing for Friend, I'm at PEC. Linda Vonderheide, Rensselaer County Community Council member.
Frank Bergman, Hudson River Boat and Yacht Club Association.
Frank Ellsworth, Conservation Supervisor, Council member. Don Mauer, Conservancy member.
Warren Demeter with the Department of State.
And yes. I'm Barney McKelvey, but anyway, you are?
Steve Salant.
Steve My God, Steve, you're back! As we always do about you, because Steve started this whole mess way back more than 24 years ago. And we're delighted we were going to say some nice things about you. I'll say them right now.
I'll excuse myself.
All right, okay. Stefan.
Greenway Conservancy, National Heritage Board, and early collaborator with the Senators.
Our former grandmother, but now about to be a member of this august group.
One raptor does anything here for any Texas one.
Jane Blackman, Conservancy Board. Cindy Lanzetta, Conservancy Board.
Betty Head, Communities Council, Albany County rep.
Sandra Johnson, State Department of Transportation.
Bob Elliott, Council Board Member.
Meg Downey, Greenway Communities Council representative for Dutchess County.
Sally Mazzarella, Greenway Council, and a former staff person for Senator Salant.
Jeff Olson, Alta Planning and Design, friend of the Greenway.
Scott Keller, Greenway staff.
We're about to be acting.
Larry Turk, Superintendent, Rosedale, Vanderbilt, and Martin Van Buren.
Thank you for inviting us.
Erica Kane, I'm District Director for Assemblywoman Dee Dee Barrett, who is also on her way and will be here momentarily.
Jared Manfredi, I work for Senators from Sereno.
And I'm Marcus Stiglione. I'm the Lame Duck Director of the Hudson Valley.
Not yet, it's not official.
And a late entry, Winthrop.
Communities Council.
All right, now let's start, and we always introduce ourselves. Start with on the left. Yes. 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 Louder, please. guess that's it. See what you've done, Steve? We're all here. You know, there's nothing like money to bring people to a meeting like this. You started out by saying that, and it's always been true. And we're delighted you're here, and this is almost on to, we're in our 25th year. 25th year starts on the first of the new year, and we have a lot of things to talk about. One of the most important is that for half of the time that there's been a Greenway, we've had Mark. We're losing him today, but we'll be talking about that. Let's start with you. Would you say something first and welcome? We've welcomed this how many times now?
As many times as I've been in office.
Okay, well, stay around.
Thank you. I would love to. Thank you very much. Good morning, and good morning, Senator Salam. Nice to see you. I'm Assemblymember Dee Dee Barrett, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 106th Assembly District and to another Greenway meeting. The role that you play in this region is so significant. I can't possibly overstate it, because it really is what holds this region together, what gives it its identity, what protects what's really important to us, and why so many of us love living here. And I just want to share with you an initiative that I've been working on to put this in on your radar screen going forward, because we're hoping that it will expand throughout the Hudson Valley. And that is to train the next generation of young people in the trades to work on historic properties. The carpenters, the plasterers, the people who can work on windows and lawns and yards, and not just the state and public properties, but also private properties. We have, over the years, been talking with state parks about this initiative, and the need is something that they feel and hear on a regular basis when they get calls even from private citizens saying, you know, I've got this great old house, a farmhouse, we need somebody who knows how to work with wooden windows or slate roofs or decorative plaster, any number of things that are particular to old properties, and they are hard-pressed to have people to suggest. So this initiative, which we've been working with BOCES and Dutchess Community College on the first round of, would help us train this next generation of tradespeople to provide this service in our communities. But in addition to training them in these skills, we are committed to being sure that they have the historical and regional background to understand why this is so important to our region. So this is partly where the college courses come in, regional history, historical context, but also giving them the business knowledge so that they can run businesses, support their families, and stay here in the Hudson Valley. One of our biggest challenges is keeping young people and attracting young people to the Hudson Valley, and we think this initiative is a great opportunity to do that. So have a wonderful meeting. Thank you all for being here. If you have any questions about this, please reach out to me or my office. We are moving forward, hoping that this will actually launch next year, and think it's an opportunity for all of our counties to do something similar. Thank you very much.
And now we hear from Jared, who's representing Sue Serino.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Jared Manfredi. I'm the policy analyst for Sue Serino, mainly based out of Albany, but born and raised here in LaGrangeville. We get all of our best ideas from advocates like you. We get lobbied on several different issues, and in the state senate, it's hard to sort out what's the best idea moving forward. But at forums like this is where we get the most information that's going to be helpful to us moving forward. This last year, we did a record investment for the Environmental Protection Fund, putting it to $300 million. One of the Senate's priorities was parity for upstate infrastructure with New York City and upstate. We feel like upstate was shortchanged, so we were fighting for our fair share. Next year, we may be looking to expand for bike trails and things like that. That was a big part of the discussion this year, so we're hoping to see something move forward next year on that. It's always a fight up in the state senate and the state assembly. You're working across the aisle, so with your advocacy, we'll get the most information that'll be beneficial for us. So thank you for having me today.
everyone, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to welcome you to Hyde Park. I think of Hyde Park as a living example of the Greenway. As many people know, we developed during the sprawl pattern of the 1950s, the auto-related uses, the big lots with the parking out front. And, you know, one of the reasons I got involved with local government was because of the inspiration of Greenway, to believe that we could be a better community than what we are now. And, you know, the job of a town supervisor, I see I have a number of colleagues out here. Most of the time we're dealing with very exciting subjects like the price of salt, you know, maybe drainage, highway super issues, personnel management. So to be part of an event like this is really inspiring, and we're very grateful to our partners, many of which are here. Greenway has provided fantastic funding for us for visioning. We have Department of Transportation here, who, when you come next year at this time, you're going to see a transformed Route 9. We have Sandra Jobson, who did fantastic work for us, creating a complete street that we're doing with the help of DOT and federal monies to go from the drive-in up to Park Plaza. So we're slowly pulling together the monies, the support with the county. We have county planning here. Our county executive has been a tremendous supporter. He's providing money for, seed money for a commercial sewer district, which will help us rework and create a town center. So, you know, my point in all this is to say that Greenway is not just a concept, it's not just an idea, it's really a living guidance and a living tool for communities like Hyde Park. So I'd like to thank you for that and wish everyone a wonderful day. Thanks.
Yeah, I can.
Yes, okay, you got loud.
Okay, so it's my pleasure now to introduce a new, I guess, member of our family, if you will, and that is the new superintendent for the Roosevelt sites here, the Vanderbilt sites, and Van Buren. His name is Larry Turk. He's a great guy. I've already gotten the chance to get to know him through my work on the Roosevelt-Vanderbilt Conservancy with Win Aldrich. And he comes to us from the West and has a wonderful story to tell. And so, Larry, I'd like to just give you the chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what brought you here to Hyde Park.
Well, thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity, first of all, to welcome y'all to the home of FDR and the FDR Presidential Library and Museum. What a beautiful setting, right? So I'm easy to distinguish because I talk different than y'all do. And so I'm really excited to be here. The Greenway is beautiful. It is a lot different than what I'm used to. I'm used to the open spaces, being able to see for hundreds of miles. So when I first got here, I was honestly suffering what I think it was claustrophobia, where, you know, 50 feet and all I see is trees. But it's very important for us to preserve and protect the Greenway now and into the future, so that our grandchildren and their children have an opportunity to experience this beautiful valley. It's breathtaking. I'm extremely excited to be here. Just a real quick on me is I'm coming from New Mexico, where I was superintendent of Chaco Culture National Historical Park and Aztec Ruins National Monument, right in the Four Corners area of New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, and Arizona. So very similar challenges, but a little different. You know, there I was dealing a lot with industry, preserving, protecting those national parks against oil and gas development right outside of our borders. So it's a little different, but, you know, I think the principles that I learned there, I'll be able to apply here. So I do have some pretty big shoes to fill, even though I'm a lot bigger than her, but Sarah did a wonderful job in preserving and protecting this area. So again, welcome to the park.
Thank you, Larry. I also see in the back Paul Sparrow, who's the director of the FDR Library. I don't know if anyone follows Paul on Twitter, but I do, and if you love Roosevelt history, every day there's something interesting that he's tweeting out or retweeting an interesting news story. So I learned so much by following you, Paul. You've done such a great job already making your mark here in Hyde Park, and wanted to give you a chance to also welcome us here. This is Paul Sparrow, director of the FDR Library.
say that FDR would love this meeting. This is like right up FDR's alley. You should think of yourselves as the acolytes of the FDR environmental heritage. Many of you know that he built the library here specifically because he wanted people to come to the Hudson River Valley. He believed that if people were going to study him and understand who he was, to truly understand who he was, you had to come here. So we celebrated our 75th anniversary in June, which was a big occasion for us. And in that, we did a lot of research on the history of the library and what was decided to do here. And of course, many of you know who Hamilton Fish was. He was the local congressman during those eras, not a big fan of Mr. Roosevelt. Hated it, in fact, and he fought the idea of putting this library up here. Even though it was in his community and was going to bring great economic benefit to the area, he fought it because he felt, well, you just built this big archives building down in Washington. Put your papers there, for heck's sake. Don't spend our money building this building up in Hyde Park. But Roosevelt felt so strongly that he wanted people to come to this area. He knew he was a historic figure. He knew people would come to study his administration, and he wanted them to come here because he had such a deep and abiding passion for the Hudson Valley. He wanted to see it preserved. And of course, the work that you're doing now is so vitally important. We know that we're being encroached on from all sides by development, by industry, bringing barges up and down the river, parking them on the side. I'm sure you're going to talk about that later. But there's so many issues at this point that you are the stewards of this environment. And I think FDR would support your efforts to maintain this purity, that the wilderness that he fought so hard in New York State and throughout the country. On a side note, there's a fantastic book that came out this year by Douglas Brinkley called Rightful Heritage. It's about FDR's environmental work. I highly recommend it. It'll be very inspiring to you because it really goes to show the vision he had to create these national greenways, in a sense, for waterfowl protection, for wildlife protection, for wilderness protection. And I think the work you're doing today really is in that spirit of his, and I hope you continue it. You're all welcome here. We call this Roosevelt weather because it's perfect. I encourage you all to come over and visit the library after the meeting is over today. We have a great exhibit right now in Pearl Harbor, the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, and I hope you come. I'm very excited to be working with Larry. Larry's great. When he first showed up, he actually had a pair of 6 guns that he wore on his hips. We were a little nervous about that. We had to ask him to leave those guns home. You know, we don't need them up here in the Hudson Valley as much. But I think he's going to be a great partner for us. He really understands the importance of working with the community. We agree on everything, particularly about how we want to be perceived as a resource and an asset for you. And I'm so happy to see you here today. And I hope you come back next year and the year after that and the year after that. So have a great meeting.
Talking about history, Steve Salan was here when it all started. Did you say a word or two about how it all began? And it,
Very briefly,
Senator Salan.
this kindly, gentlemanly figure is truly one of the sternest taskmasters one might ever have to bear up to. He's very kind and generous in spreading the wealth on the creation of Greenway. I did work very closely on the public side with then Assemblyman Maurice Hitchie, then Assemblyman George Pataki. They went obviously on to bigger and better things. I stayed in the state legislature. But Bert Barney was truly one of the driving forces. He was persistent. He was relentless. And was really all about taking this somewhat diverse area called the Hudson Valley. I don't think at the time people really had an idea of what the Hudson Valley was. It was there, it was on the map. It was this line called the Hudson River, right down the middle of it. And what did Columbia County have in common with Rockland County, Westchester County, common with Ulster County? It can never work. Well, this is the proof that it works. The whole idea of create a sense of region, to enable people to work together, to create the ability to plan regionally, to create trails, to connect, and it's worked magnificently. And it's worked really, I hate to say this, rather inexpensively, despite the fact that every year, more often than not, there can be battle over funding. And it's a credit not only to the people sitting here and your predecessors, but it's a credit to you and your predecessors for keeping it going, keeping it alive, keeping it passionate, and keeping it really a matter of ensuring the quality of life of our multi-dimensional region called the Hudson Valley. Keep up the good work, please.
Jeff, where are you? All right. Now, we got some hors d'oeuvres, and here we come to the main course. And the main course is the trail. And the trail goes back, if you care about history, is that the original report on the Greenway talked about a Hudson River Trail. And at that time, it was Rose Harvey, who is now, of course, the parks, was at that time was at Trust for Public Land. And she proposed a Hudson River Trail. And ever so slowly, he was in diapers then when we started. It's 25 years later, it's happening. Jeff Olson, we're delighted that you're here and that we're starting, no, not starting, we'll be finishing on the trail, right? Yes. You're first class, Jeff.
Here we go. Thank you, sir. And thank you for wishing me a happy 26th birthday. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Doesn't get much better than that. I want to also introduce John Bean is here as well, part of our team for this project. I often have the unique honor of being the person who gets to talk about the work of many hands, and there's a lot of people who went into what we're about to talk about, many of whom have been here before us, and Senator, thank you for mentioning, 25 years, the Greenway, and even before that, people have made, what we're doing now possible. I certainly want to Mark and the entire Greenway staff, and many of you have helped contribute to this project. It is hopefully, as Barney has said, an inspiration. We are about to take another big step forward in making the dream of connecting the Hudson Valley reality. We know that there are trails that already do that you can walk and bike and paddle the length of the valley, but we also have a new plan for the next generation of that trail system. Those of you who haven't had a chance yet, the plan is in front of you on this big table. There's a purple marker there, and if we want to play a little bit of Harold and the Purple Crayon, those of us are old enough to remember that children's book, right? Grab the crayon and write a message for the next 25 years on that map, and we're going to collect those at the end of the day. So come up at any time. I'm going to take you through a very brief overview presentation. This is the Hudson River Valley Greenway Trail Connection Plan. As Mark said yesterday, it's a fairly small effort in terms of some bigger plans have been done in the past, but I think it is on target and strategically important for what we're about to accomplish. So before I start the presentation, I just want to say personally, thanks for having us here. My family, since they came to this country, have always lived in the Hudson Valley. I think we've covered it pretty well from end to end, from Saratoga all the way down to the Bronx and Manhattan. I married into the National Park Service, so Superintendent, it's great to, I married a park ranger, so kind of happy to have that at home as well. So this is our lives. This is what we do. This is how we want to raise our kids. I would like to be able to say that what we're talking about today and connecting the valley with trails is something that we will get to use, and Barney just made the comment, ourselves, and that our children will be able to. And before I start, just one anecdote. I had lunch with Barney, I guess it was maybe a couple weeks ago in New York, and I made a comment about I've been working on this my whole life, and he said, stop right there. You're not even halfway yet. So for those who have worked their whole lives, I hope that we see this plan as a gift, an inspiration for the next 25 years, and a start towards making the next steps even more possible than we see. So just to get us going here we can see the view, right? That's taken off the walkway over the Hudson. Many of you know that when we collectively started working on all this, there were certain projects that people said would absolutely never happen and were completely impossible. They are happening, and they're happening faster and faster right now. This is an extraordinary time to to not just be in this valley, but to be in the entire trails movement. And we're lucky enough to work on projects all over the country and around the world. There are things happening that people said would never get done. Hudson River Park in Manhattan is a perfect example. The walkway over the Hudson is another one. And I do think as we stand here in Roosevelt's home and we think about what was done during the worst of economic times in this country, that we will very soon, in the next couple of weeks, have a new president, and it will have a new movement towards building new infrastructure for this country that is the equal to where we are today. And it's projects like this that are going to be the ones that we make happen. So it's already happening. It's a question of how do we connect it all together. The existing facilities, as many of you know, are oriented primarily towards hiking trails, on-road biking, and the water trail system. They're incredible, and they can be added to, and there are projects to make those connect even more, especially the lower valley when you think about hiking bridge to bridge to bridge, and the potential to emphasize the ability to literally walk from Central Park and make it to the walkway over the Hudson on foot. There are a few gaps in that, and we know that that can be made possible. You certainly can travel the water trail, and the work that Scott has done is world-class, the ability to paddle the length of the Hudson. And the bike routes, which I was involved in back in their beginning at State DOT, I think could use a little bit of work. They're for the most able-bodied and skilled cyclists. I'm happy enough to still be one, but I don't know how many more years I can ride in that kind of mixed traffic and be able to ride with family and friends and kids. So what we really want to start to look forward to is that future of how do we connect up a Greenway trail in the sense that trails have evolved into shared use path, multiple use, accessible for most able-bodied people and people with varying levels of ability, the ability to follow essentially old railroad grades, canals, utility lines, and corridors that may connect up. And our task in this plan was to look at projects that are already doing that and connecting at least 2 or more communities together. So what we've mapped from an incredible amount of information is that possible connected route. So we look at the mileages that are out there right now, and you can see these are summarized in the executive summary of the report. There's a lot of miles of trail out there, and it's extraordinary. And thank you to every single person that's here. Many of the communities here we've had the great joy to work with over the years, and it's great when Mayor Jim from Altamont comes up and says, we're going to connect that rail trail that we talked about, and that plan that we did is going to connect all the way to New York City. And the same is true with our friends in New Paltz and Kingston and so many other communities along the way. So here we are trying to figure out how to take those miles that are there and connect them up. So the major projects include bridges, big connections that are in process, trails that are multiple towns. And I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, but you'll have access to this presentation later. The biking routes, as I mentioned, could use some upgrade for the on-road touring routes, but there really isn't a long-distance route that you can travel with your family and friends and kids. The Blueway system is extraordinary. We use a wiki map, an online tool that many of you, thank you. How many people contributed to the online mapping? How many organizations that are here? It was fantastic to have all that data come in. I want to thank our staff that did the GIS work behind this because Mark will attest the complexity level and a lot of the existing data was inaccurate. There are pieces missing, but there now is a solid GIS database of all the major trails in the valley. So that by itself has been a big accomplishment. Connecting that up, the idea of looking at a primary Greenway trail that would connect from Manhattan to the Adirondack Park. I don't think before today many of us thought that that was possible. There were a couple moments in the course of this project where I can be honest, we didn't think we had that in range either. But the more we looked at it and the more we talked to local organizations and land trusts and communities along the way, it turns out that there is a route that connects up. It is not, as Barney would say, the route directly along the river, and it doesn't preclude that. It's actually a step in that direction, because what I'm going to show you is that primary Greenway route that's highlighted in the gray you see on the map, and then imagine adding to that the routes that are closer to the water as they can happen over time. But every project that's in this alignment, and we're looking at from Manhattan all the way up to where I live in Saratoga County, are projects that are in progress, communities that are working on things. And I think the one thing we haven't seen is all those communities don't yet realize that you all connect. And I think that's really what we want to come out of this project with, is a sense that every one of those pieces, that missing link in New Paltz, where my daughter's in college right now, is so important because it's part of this. The Beacon Exempt line, which MTA owns right now, but there's people working on, is important because it's part of this. The improvements to access on the bridges, including the Tappan Zee, are important because of this. All those little pieces are happening, and now we have a way of seeing them all happen together. It's a big vision. It's certainly a major leap forward into the future, but I think when we look at what's been done in the last 25 years, I know that we can do this not just in 25 years, I think we could do this in less than 10. I'm convinced we could do it in 5 if we put together enough effort. And I'm saying that because projects that we're working on around the country that we're seeing happen, 40, 50, 60-mile greenways done in a year or two. The Wolf River Greenway in Memphis. A single donor came in and said, design this whole thing. I want the design done in 12 months. I want this under construction next year. Northwest Arkansas, the Razorback Greenway, 40 miles end-to-end done in 3 years with no right-of-way. 128 different right-of-way acquisitions, all done in 10 months. Because the motivation was there, the public-private and nonprofit partnership was there. We can be doing this here. We have, probably in this room, the resources to make all of this possible. There's also the end-to-end trail on both sides, and we'll make sure that we look at this in a little more detail. I'm going to skip through a couple of these maps to get to the really good stuff. And here we are. This is going to go from north to south instead of south to north because I did the map from our northern office here. But if you start all the way up, and mind my back for a minute, let me just, am I loud enough? Yeah, my mother always said that. If we start all the way up in Saratoga County, start at the very top, we've got the Champlain Canal, connects us all the way down pretty much to Albany. From there, somewhere in the vicinity of the Capitol, there's some missing links in the Corning Preserve. I got a wireless. There's some missing links in the Corning Preserve and through Watervliet and a couple other gaps. We know that we can close that. The KSS trail that picks up in Rensselaer County, just near the Albany train station, or the Rensselaer train station, then connects down lower into Columbia County. I'll go to the next map. Again, I'm following this dark shaded highlighted line. The other lines on the map are other major rail trails or trails that connect in. There are a number of them. The hiking trail system that exists, you'll see in black, and the orange lines are the existing bike route network. So follow this dark gray line through all that, and you'll see this all connect. We've mapped it differently if you look in the document with just the gray line, so it's easier to see. We've done this in a couple different displays, but for today I wanted to show it this way because all the stuff we're working on connects together. The hiking trails connect into this shared use trunk line. The existing bike routes connect in as well, and they all complement each other. This is not an either-or situation. This is win-win and win, I hope. So if we come south, we come down to the Harlem Valley Rail Trail. We connect over to Kingston, where there's an existing water taxi operating. We can begin to connect across the river, follow the Wallkill Valley back to the walkway over the Hudson. Again, that missing link in New Paltz is important. Connect over the bridge and to the Beacon Exempt line. I'll go one more map farther south. And then we can follow that all the way down to the North and South County trails, which connect us all the way to the tip of Manhattan. That's shared use, all the trail use types that we've talked about, all using a common route that connects from the Adirondack Park to Manhattan. Now, I'm going to switch microphones. I'm not sure if the feedback is that okay. I'm not going to say that this is absolutely easy. I'm also not going to say it's the only way to solve the problem, but it's one that can be done in the near term, and then allows us to build from that spine to connect all the other ribs that come into it. And that'll include the Ulster County Rail Trail and so many other great projects that are happening. What hasn't happened before, and I think the thing that the chairman has asked us to really focus on here is how to get that implemented and what it takes. And it's going to take support and leadership at the highest levels. It's going to take community buy-in. It's going to take money. But the amount of money that we take to do a project like this, even at $1.5 million a mile for building shared use paths, is still about a small fraction of a Tappan Zee bridge. It's a small fraction of rebuilding an airport. It's nowhere near the cost per mile of what we spend on interstate highways. Within the scale of infrastructure of a state like New York, it is a completely valuable and necessary thing. Every community here will say the same thing. If that happens, it is going to make our community a better place. It is going to connect us economically, socially, and culturally to this entire valley. And I hope that that's what we have, at least in front of us today, for all of your consideration. So, with that said, there's what it looks like in existing, proposed, planned, and miles that we still have to figure out what to do. The amazing thing about that is that the gaps are smaller than we thought when we started the project. When we first began looking at this, we thought we had much more gaps than we had miles in process. And I think if we can take those planned projects, the ones that haven't quite gotten beyond concept level that certainly have not begun to be designed or taken through the environmental process, and package all that together and do that in a coordinated way, we're going to get this done faster than anyone ever imagined. So I want to leave you here today with that thought, and if I can, Mark, if you would cue up the, we have a little Google Earth flyover, at least of half of this. I know you have other things to do today, but I just want you to just watch this for a minute and imagine that you're a bird, you're a bald eagle, and you're flying from New York going north and you're following this route. Imagine, though, that at some point this is you and your family and your kids, or maybe your grandchildren, and you're taking them on this exploration from north to south. And it shows how amazing this valley is. We're going to do a narrated version of this. We're going to put all the place names and drop them into it. But we've just left Manhattan. We're flying over Westchester right now. We're up Hastings. You can see some of the town names. This connects up the valley in a way that I think would just be the most spectacular thing. There's nowhere else on Earth that could take you through this landscape and connect you to these destinations, and then form the spine that will be able to connect us to the entire valley. So this is going to end in just a couple seconds, and I'll just let you watch it for a moment. By the way, the technology to do this didn't exist when the Greenway was founded. If you think back 25 years ago, there was no Google Earth. We did not have the ability to imagine that we were bald eagles and fly through this valley. And I want to thank our office for putting together the technology to get this little flyover. For your purposes, just so you know, every line that's in here, every trail that's in here is backed up in a database in GIS. It will be accessible to all the communities. Greenway will have those files. We're just compiling them right now. So there is a tool to use behind all this that will make life so much easier. We started this project with just little bits and pieces and dots and small amounts of data, and to see that turn into something that we can imagine. You can imagine using this with other people as well and letting them see it. So, Mark, I'm going to ask you just to go back to the last slide. Help me out one more time. That's sort of my 15 minutes of fame. I think that what we're talking about is extraordinary. I don't know a better word for it. We get to work on a lot of projects, and I got to tell you, it's very rare that you get to do something that is even close to this in a place that, matters so much personally to all of us. If my great-grandparents, when they got off that boat, thought that I'd be standing here right now, I think they would feel pretty good about it. And whether they were living at the bottom of Catterskill Falls when they first started, or in the Bronx when my grandfather ran a store, or when I went to RPI up in Troy, or where we are in Saratoga right now, to think that all those places would actually be connected together by a trail that could be used by anyone, regardless of age or ability, regardless of their economic status, no matter who they are in this entire region and from around the world. I hope someday that we're able to get to a point where this is done. I hope that it gets done soon, and I hope that we've today been able to kind of put a small dent in the universe and say that there's one more good idea out there. With that, we will take questions. We'll be here throughout the day. John and I are going to take the opportunity to walk around the grounds a little bit while you're in the rest of the meeting, but we're not leaving. We're going to come back in. And I just want to say, absolutely, on behalf of the entire team of people that worked on this project, thank you very much. As long as you have time. We'll take some questions. Yes, Mark, I'm happy to stick around. I'm not going anywhere. This is where I want to be today. Go ahead. Anybody, questions?
Well, I would just like to say thank you, Jeff, and the Alta team and BHAN team. To get a product like this and to get a vision articulated for the budget that we had really is a testament to, I think, the belief that Jeff and his team has in the power of trails. We would not have gotten a work product like this out of a lot of other firms. So thank you, Jeff, for all the work that went into this great product and really helping us to articulate again the big idea for what this trail can mean for the region.
Thank you very much. And like I said, can't say how much we appreciate it. So, Jamie.
Just to say that, very impressed with the overall presentation, and that flyover is absolutely cool. At least, is that going to be accessible either on the Greenway site or some other place, so that way communities, as they're looking at it, obviously a static plan only goes so far, but if people can see it, if trail groups can see this flyover and say, hey, we can connect to this overall picture, then it might be easier to bring funding.
Literally, we're working on that today, and I again, I'm just standing in front of the project. There's a whole bunch of other people doing so much work, and they're working right now, literally, to get that done. These files are often very complicated. What you end up seeing is very simple, and the hard part is making it simple. So as quick as we can, we have another meeting with all the communities on the 1st, I think it is, or Halloween day, somewhere, Halloween. And we'll go through that process, make sure, bear in mind, we're still looking at this at a very high level. We know that there's a lot of ground truthing that has to be done. We know there's a lot of work that has to happen, but we still want to articulate that idea. As soon as we get through that last meeting, we'll wrap things up, make sure we've got it all in good shape, and then, yes, it will all be available online. As well as all the data files that are behind it, Greenway will have access to in their original form. Other questions?
You do really good stuff, but if for those of you who want to say something nice about this, I suggest that you may want to write a note or email, as everybody does now, to Rose Harvey, who was there at the beginning. It was Rose's project to talk about this trail 24 years, 8 months ago. And it's, as I said, it's taken a little while, Steve, right? But we're there, and you're doing great stuff, Jeff. We really do. Let Rose know that this is something that the Hudson River Valley really cares about. Questions, comments? Anybody?
I think we're in good shape.
I think you got it.
Thanks again. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you again, Jeff. I was just thinking that on this day in New York history today, in 1825, the Erie Canal opened. So when you think about what incredible watershed that was for our region, you think about the aspirations and dreams we still have for something that could be the big idea for our time. It's pretty inspiring, and it kind of, history doesn't repeat itself always, but it rhymes. And there's something about today in this presentation that really sings. So now we're going to move into the business portion of the meeting, and that begins always with the agenda review and board member comments on that agenda. So does anyone who are on the Conservancy or the council boards have any comments on the agenda or the other items? Okay, so moving forward, we're going to call the meeting to order and get started. I can do that for the Conservancy. Barney, I think you've got to call the council meeting to order, but I'm sure you want to do that?
Conservancy, please be in order for this meeting.
Great. And this, of course, starts with a very special presentation to our acting director, Mark, and I'd like to call up Scott Keller to make that presentation.
And the rest of the staff.
And the rest of the staff, please. Beth, Dan, Shannon.
Couldn't find a Make America Great Again hat. So, in honor of your 12 years, spent in a tent, and for being a great boss, and having our backs always. Thank you. Thank you so much. If I could say a word without choking up.
It's just been a really tremendous honor and privilege to work with all of you and the incredible staff. It's a very rare opportunity to get a chance to do what you love, and that's what I've had the opportunity to do here at the Greenway. So, as Kevin said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, and that's what I hope to do at my new job in the Capital District. I hope to be able to rhyme with the things that we've done here in the Hudson River Valley. I'd like to thank the staff for being so great to work with and always being there for me when through thick and thin. When we've needed to work together, you've been fantastic. But thank you all for giving me the opportunity to really work with you all and being inspired every day by the work that you do. So thank you very much.
chairs this, that's why.
And I just wanted to say that I have not known the Greenway without Mark. When I joined the Greenway in 2010, Mark was in the same role that he's in now. And just like with Barney, I can't imagine it without him. So the Greenway really, it's been defined by Mark in so many ways, and it's been an incredible pleasure for me to work with you. And I just wanted to say two brief things. Besides all the work that you've done for the Greenway, I really think that for everyone who's had a chance to work with you, it's undeniably true that you really are an exemplar of good government and really what the highest ideals of a government service employee are. And, you know, you think about the history of civil service in this country and the progressive era and really wanting to get experts into roles who can make a difference. You were what they had in mind. You are efficient, you're smart, you're collaborative, you're kind, you're thoughtful, you reach out, and you really have a deep passion for the state, but you always put other people first, and you really are a model, I think, for other state employees to follow and to emulate. And I think, you know, as anxious as we are and sad as we are that you're leaving, we're thrilled for you, and I think another testament to your service here at the Greenway, Mark, and your legacy in many ways, is the team you've built. And, you know, Beth and Dan and Shannon, of course Scott, they're also your legacy. I think that team that you've kind of led for these past years and kind of how expert they are give us all comfort in this transition knowing that we're in good hands. But you really have left an incredible mark on the Greenway, and I think will always be part of our history and will remain a friend. So we're thrilled for you, and of course we'll miss you. So again, let's hear from Mark.
Now get back to business.
Yes. So we have a few things to do here as kind of rolling from this change, and that is, the first is, on the Conservancy side, we need to call for a motion to have a deputy executive officer appointed. It's because, as a result of Scott, who you'll see in a few minutes, will be in the interim acting executive director role, we need someone else who can actually manage the financial aspects of this, and that requires the appointment of this executive officer, and that we'd like that to be Beth Cappuccino. Beth, where are you? Are you in the back there? So we do need to have a formal motion for that. So on the Conservancy side, can I have a motion? Stefan, and a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we've got the two motions, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we do have that taken care of right away. And then the next thing we have to do, and I think, Mark, maybe this will be for you to update us on, and that's the internal control procedures.
Right. So now that we have a deputy executive officer, the update to the internal controls procedures will just essentially outline the separation of duties between what will be Scott in the acting role and finance manager, and Beth as the person that's authorized to sign checks and approve expenditures. Since Scott manages the books, he can also approve spending, so that's why Beth is being appointed as the deputy executive officer to approve spending. Is that right, Scott?
That's absolutely correct.
Now you need to appoint the interim acting executive director, Scott.
That's right, so
You need to vote on the internal controls first.
because
Vote on the internal controls.
Okay, so this is also a Conservancy measure, so we have to do that again to make sure that we're all buttoned up. So I need to have another motion on the Conservancy side to adopt those internal control procedures. Stefan, okay? Second?
Second.
In the back, Don, okay? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so those are adopted, and then the last of the pieces that need to fall into place is the appointment of the interim acting executive director for the Council Conservancy. And Scott, you have really been here since the beginning, and we can't think of anyone else to step into this role than you. You know it's a tall order, there are big shoes to fill, but we feel so confident with your leadership going forward. So I think that's something that we are all looking forward to in terms of working with you in this new capacity, and thankful that you're willing to step in. So we do also, I think, have to have a motion for that as well.
I'll move on that.
I think that would be, we're beating down the door to get the first and second, so who's always taking the minutes, take your pick of anyone. I think it will be by unanimous acclamation, but
Why don't you two make the motion in the second, and that'll make it easier for everybody.
sounds good. Okay, so Kevin and Barney, that's fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the ayes have it. Scott, is now the interim acting executive director, which is great news. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, so just moving through the agenda, we've got to get to the minutes from the last meeting, which I believe was held up in Tivoli, which was a great day. So these are the combined minutes from the last meeting. Hope you all have had a chance to look at them. And we do need to formally approve those minutes. So I'd like to call for a motion for that. Do I have a first to approve the prior meeting minutes? Wint, Aldrich, and second? Jane, okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes are adopted. All right, so now we are moving forward, and that now brings us to the council portion of the meeting, and that is for Chairman McHenry.
All right, I have the right to appoint two new council advisory board members, and the first is Andy, who is taking Steve Rosenberg's place. Randy, where are you? There he is. And the thing is that no one can ever take Steve Rosenberg's place, but Andy, if anybody is close to it, you are the one, his. And so we're delighted for that. Andy, you are what is your job at?
Director of Public Policy.
Okay, all right. And then, of course, Sarah. Where is Sarah? Sarah Olson. Sarah Olson's been here since we started. And the thing is, and we're delighted that you're staying in the territory, and we're making you an advisory board member. And we're delighted that, in 25 words or less, what's it been like, this whole Greenway thing?
Yeah, I've been here for 17 years. Like all of you, I can't imagine the time we've been for as ever devastating as and just from the National Park Service perspective, there are not many park managers that have an organization like this working alongside the shared interests. Serving as such a wonderful leader of all the communities. So, I just think the role of the Greenway, I'm delighted to
That's right, it is, Steve? Okay. All right, thank you, Sarah. We're delighted that you're an advisory board member. And now we can go right into the Greenway Grant Awards. And Mark, would you? Sure.
Well, it's a great honor to preside over this Greenway meeting in particular because we will be awarding more grant funds than we have ever awarded before. So it's a tremendous honor to be able to go through some of the great projects that we're funding today. So this list of Greenway Council grants is the total award is $57,500, and the first project is a zoning ordinance and code revision to the town of Ghent in Columbia County. And Kothi Zahn is here. And would you like to say just a few words about the project, please?
Constantly. Oh, thank you. And so this grant is going to enable us to hire a zoning consultant to help to advise us with the substantive issues that are coming up for us. And it's great. We have a great team, a lot of dedicated citizens, but this is going to completely change, the quality of the work that we're able to produce. And so very grateful for this grant. Thank you.
Thank you. And we did practice her name before this, and I still screwed it up. And that's for $10,000. The next grant is to the town of Guilderland in Albany County for a pedestrian trail plan. And Donald Kasapos is here. Would you say a few words about it, please?
Thanks.
the town of Gildan is a fairly large town, almost 60 square miles. It's just inland from the river. And we have an existing trail network in our town that is pretty insular. It tends to be recreational, a lot of loops, that sort of thing. It doesn't get you from A to B. Our thinking on connectivity has changed in the recent past, and we're going to use this grant, along with some town money, to rethink our trail planning and to use the terminology that Jeff Olson was just utilizing a few minutes ago. Would like to make our trail plan part of the red network that will link to the trunk of the Hudson River Valley Trail, and we appreciate the assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. That grant is for $7,500. The next grant is to the town of New Paltz in Ulster County. This is an intermunicipal collaboration between the town of New Paltz and the village. And I'm pleased to say that we have Supervisor Neil Bettis and Mayor Tim Rogers here to say a few words about the project. Maybe the mayor's not here, but Neil?
Thank you very much for this grant. This is for a planning and zoning grant in our Gateway area. And so when our master plan and the zoning codes were put together years ago, we never imagined that this bike path or multi-use trail would be coming right through New Paltz. And we think it's really important that we update our code and our plan to really make sure that this bike path is treated the way it should be as it passes through our town. So, and this grant is going to help a lot with that. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Supervisor. That grant is for $10,000. The next grant is to the town of Red Hook in Dutchess County for the development of the town of Red Hook Complete Streets Standards. And as we saw from Jeff's presentation, trails don't just mean wilderness trails and walking trails. They also mean streets that are friendly to pedestrians and bicyclists. And here to say a few words about the project is Supervisor Bob McCune.
Thanks, Mark, and an added note to Kevin's list of all the attributes for Mark over the years is his great sense of humor. For 12 years, I've been calling him and reaching out to the Greenway, and we're going to miss you, Mark, and we continue to thank all of you for your support in Red Hook. We couldn't do the things that we do without our partners in the state and also in the county and our land trust that we have here. The Greenway has been essential for us in the past in preserving our working landscapes, our other open spaces. More recently, we received a grant last year to update our zoning to protect our historic region along the riverfront area from north to south in our township. Important to us, to our economy, and to our quality of life is that we can get people out there enjoying all the work that we have done in collaboration with you, and it's essential that we take our streets and we make them safe, not only for our residents, but certainly for the tourists, and we are seeing a real resurgence in our local economy because we've done so much work with your help over the years to preserve community character. So we are going to take this money and we are going to update our rather outmoded road specifications. 22 years ago was the last time we looked at our road specs, and we are going to address complete streets design, not only for new roads, because as you can imagine, there's not a tremendous demand at the moment for a creation of new roads, but each year when we go to repave a road, we're going to take a look at that road and say, is it the right width? Can we accommodate bikers? What are we going to do with pedestrians? How are we connecting them to the road next to it? And so with this seed money, like we have with all the other grants that you've given us, we'll be able to make that critical first step. So we thank you very much.
Great. Congratulations, Supervisor. That grant is for $10,000. The next grant is to the village of Altamont up in Albany County. It's for a project to interpret the history of the village. It's called Museum in the Streets, and we have Mayor James Gauguin here to say a few words about the project. Mayor?
I love when I get pronounced like a famous artist from... On behalf of myself, the board, Keith Lee, who was identified earlier as in our museum and archives, we in the village of Altamont are a very small 1,700 and change population within the rather large town of Guilderland that Don just mentioned. What we are very thankful to the Greenway for its support in this seed money to implement this spring our Museum in the Streets project. As it, I hope, suggests to you, what we envision is a walking tour within the confines of our village at various historic sites with placards and connections into technological platforms that will connect visitors, school children, tourists, to other information beyond the site that's indicated on the placard, but also to access other languages, be reading for those who can't, who are blind, etc. So, and I hope it's intuitively clear that we see this in this little small place as an incentive to actually not only highlight our culture, which we think is one of the big attributes of such a small place that draws tourists to us, so it's an incentive to improve our businesses. But most importantly, this is my own private vision, that it inspires other small places that could connect, like has been mentioned throughout the meeting, to already existing trails. We're connecting to Thatcher Park, the Visitor Center, the Mohawk Hudson Conservancy, Bosanquille Trail that's just outside our village. But it would help small places like us be not just a place to come and drink and eat and go to businesses, but actually to connect within the larger Greenway Trail. So we look forward to implementing next spring. I hope I see all of you there when we do the ribbon cutting. And one last point, we are doing it in bilingual language so that not only will the school tours that I expect to come to do their history tours of the local history, but the language classes will be there as well, learning to read on site what the placards say. Anyway, thank you again very much for your grant. It's been a pleasure working with the staff, particularly Mark, throughout the process. Appreciate it.
Congratulations, Mayor. That grant is for $10,000. Helping communities do better planning, and particularly when it relates to their waterfront areas, is something that the Greenway has supported and funded for a number of years. And this next grant to the village of Ardsley will do just that. We have here Meredith Robeson. Hi, Meredith. Good to see you again. To say a few words about the project.
Thank you very much. For those of you who don't get south too much, we are a very small community in Westchester County, about 1 square mile, and we are sliced and diced by the Thruway and the Sawmill and 9A, and also have the Bronx River and the Sawmill River that run through our community. So we're a very tight community in terms of the space that we have. And what this funding will allow us to do is to be able to begin our comprehensive plan update process and local waterfront revitalization program process. And I'm looking at Jamie because I'm hopeful we're going to be back in a couple of months with some good news on that as well. But for those of you who read the application, you know that it's been quite some time since Ardsley has done any comprehensive planning. For those of you that didn't read the application, think 1960s. So we are due. We are ready, and we're very excited to begin that process, to work forward. We feel privileged to be able to be here, and very thankful to the state legislature for including the Bronx River and the Sawmill, so that we have an opportunity to do some really great work in the village of Ardsley. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Meredith. Congratulations, that grant is for $10,000, and that is the slate of Greenway Council grants for this meeting.
Yeah, well, now we also, Mark, will you also do that town of it's just, it's just right up the road here, LaGrange is doing something.
Oh, yes. As an update to the board, the town of LaGrange, stepping back, our poster child for Greenway planning, Dutchess County, updated their Greenway guides this time last year, and the town of LaGrange and Dutchess County updated their zoning and subdivision regulations to incorporate those new guidelines that were adopted by Dutchess County. So that's an update. I don't believe the board needs to take any action.
Anybody from LaGrange here? It's within shouting distance. But LaGrange, good. All right. We're delighted. We'll have a single motion, please, to approve all of these. It's almost $70,000. It's a lot of money.
$57,500.
Yeah. is a motion, and a second, okay, all right, thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, thank you very much.
Barney, could the record show that I'm abstaining on the Red Book grant as the town historian? Don't want anyone to make any accusations.
Yes, I guess you are. He is always an historian. And thank you very much, and now Kevin.
So we're going to pivot now to the Conservancy Awards, and we've got quite a bundle of them. I think there are 22 in all. So I'd like to call Mark back up to do those Trail Grant Awards. Thank you, Mark. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. And I'd like to mention that this is the highest dollar amount we've ever had to award for our Conservancy Trail Grant Program. And thanks are really due to a lot of people in this room, whether it's elected officials that write to the governor to articulate the value of what the Greenway does, to advocates like Scenic Hudson that advocated for $300 million in this year's EPF funding. Without those, without that support and the support of many other organizations, these grants would not be possible. And we know that these grants really do pay big dividends in our region. While they may be small, they really, as we've heard from a number of organizations, provide catalytic support to get projects off the ground. Typically, these grants have been capped at about $10,000, but I'm thankful to report that this year we've raised that cap and are able to award more significant amounts of funding for a variety of trail projects. So we have many of our grantees in the audience with us and many of our partners. So I'd like to, just as a preface, just ask you all to say a brief, to keep your comments brief as possible, but please do feel free to describe your project and how it fits within the larger context of the Greenway. So the first grant that I'm announcing today is to the City of Kingston in Ulster County for the Hasbrook at Delaware node at the Kingston Point Rail Trail. The Greenway has supported this project in a number of ways in the past. This grant is for $30,000, and the City of Kingston's grant manager, Kristen Wilson, is here to say a few words about the project. Kristen?
Hi, I just also want to introduce Brenna Robinson, who is our Director of Economic Development for the city, and Alan Aiden from the Engineering Office, who are here with me. We're really excited and appreciative for this grant. It will become part of the Kingston Green Line, which is going to be at the junction of 4 trails that come in from different parts of the county and will be part of the Hudson River Valley Greenway. And so this will be for a node on the Kingston Point Rail Trail. If you're not familiar with the Kingston Point Rail Trail, it will run from Midtown Kingston to the Rondout Creek and connect on out to the Hudson River to Kingston Point Park and then hopefully beyond. And so along the way, we have designed several nodes or little parklets on that trail. And so this funding will be for the construction of one of those parklets on the west side of a tunnel that goes under Delaware Avenue in Kingston. And it's for a stairway to come right out of the tunnel for both safety and access. From the neighborhood that's just right above the tunnel, a parklet, and then we're also going to have some community development block grant funding to match with this grant to build some sidewalks around the tunnel. And we'll be doing the design in-house. Alan will be doing our design, and I think that's it. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Congratulations, Kristen, and the rest of the team from Kingston. The grant is for $30,000, and I will come back for that ribbon cutting. Looking forward to it. Next grant is to the town of Ossining, and as we heard Jeff and others say, that greenways are not just about rail trails, but they're also about connectivity in the streets, and that's what this project in the town is going to accomplish, to enhance bike and pedestrian facilities and to explore other connectivity options throughout the town. Supervisor Dana Levenberg is here to say a few words about the project.
Thanks, Mark, and congratulations to you on all the incredible work you've done. I had the pleasure of working with you when I was in Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff's office, and now it's exciting to be here to see all the accolades that are well-deserved, and looking forward to hearing more good things about you in the future. I just want to thank the Conservancy for this incredible award. We're very excited. To touch on something that Jeff had said earlier, some of these are things that people said could never get done. This kind of, the notion of connecting up all of our assets, including our parks and our trailways, came because somebody said, the DOT said they'll never fix Route 133 in Ossene, never. They're never going to slow down the traffic. And so we started looking at what could we do and thinking about ways that we could slow down the traffic. And now that everybody's really focusing more on biking and pedestrians, we said, well, let's look at that and look into a planning grant that could start making our way from the old Croton Aqueduct and Riverwalk on the Hudson to connect with the Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway and then to the North County Trailway over in Millwood. And along the way, we have some tremendous historic assets and parks that we can connect all of these northwest trailways going from north-south trailways going east-west. So this will be money that will start that planning process, and hopefully we'll be back for some implementation money in the very near future. Thanks again for your consideration. We look forward to working with you.
Great. Congratulations, Supervisor. That grant's for $30,000. The next grant is to one of our great partners in Rensselaer County, the Rensselaer Plateau Alliance, and this is to expand on a previous Greenway grant and trail action plan that was developed, and this will take that trail action planning process to the next level. I'm so pleased to introduce Jim Bonesteel, the Executive Director of the Rensselaer Plateau Alliance, to say a few words about the project. Jim?
Thanks, Mark. We're grateful for the last grant that enabled us to envision this grand trail vision on the plateau, and look forward to this grant, which will enable us to work with a planning firm to take the next step and engage landowners to work toward implementing several of the trails that were envisioned in the first plan. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. That grant is for $25,000. Congratulations to the Rensselaer Plateau Alliance. The next grant is to the town of Red Hook, Dutchess County. This is for a village-to-village connector trail. This is a great partnership between the villages in the town, and Bard College to create better connectivity between those resources. Supervisor, you're really raking up today. Bob McCune from town of Red Hook.
Well, actually, we have our transport coordinator,
Brenda.
Our town board member, who's going to speak on this project.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Mark. This grant award came at a perfect time for us because we had just completed a trail plan thanks to Greenway funding that we received in 2014, and also thanks to Alta Planning and Design. So it gave us an opportunity to keep our plan off the shelf, so to speak. It didn't have time to gather dust. We're very grateful. When we were planning our trail, doing our trail plan, we had a stakeholder group. We did lots of public outreach, and the people of Red Hook were very loud and clear about their top priority, which was to have a village-to-village trail which connected both our villages, Tivoli and Red Hook, as well as Bard College and Tivoli Bays. So we will use these fundings not only to formalize this trail, but also we consider this kind of the groundwork we're laying for developing a hook trail system in our town. We were fortunate enough to get some engineering studies from Dutchess County DPW as well as from a local engineer, so we're using that as match for the Greenway funding, and the Greenway monies will be used to install traffic calming techniques that are identified in the engineering studies, as well as to do branding and marketing. We'll be building some kiosks with the help of a scouting group. And of course, at the end, we will ask that this trail be a designated Greenway trail. So thank you very much.
Great. Congratulations to the town of Red Hook. It's a great project and a great partnership. The grant is for $20,000. The next grant is to the village of Nassau of Rensselaer County. This is part of the trail plan that you just saw. This is another investment in the Albany-Hudson Electric Trail in the village of Nassau. Mayor Robert Valenti or Trustee Gaetano Forte, are they here today?
I'd just like to say thank you for the grant award. This award will allow us to do some engineering work that's required in order to work with National Grid to work out a leasing agreement for this part of the trail. This is the first part of the Albany Electric Trail, Albany Hudson Electric Trail, that's gone this far.
So we are hopeful that this will become a catalyst for the larger portion of the trail that really is the part that Jeff Hudson talked about, demonstrated between Albany County and Columbia County through Rensselaer County. And I'd just like to say, on behalf of small communities, thank you very much. You know, we're just like we've heard before, the village of Nassau is very small. About 1,000 people, and we would not be able to do any of this without these grant awards. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the good work that you do in the small village of Nassau. It's so important to have committed local partners doing this great work, and I think I speak for all the board members to really just say, we're here for that type of project. The next grant is to the town of Saugerties in Ulster County. This also follows up on a previous Greenway grant award to contemplate more public access at Bristol Beach State Park within the town. This is going to create a trail plan to connect Eves Point to Bristol Beach. And Supervisor Greg Helmsmorton was here today. If you say a few words about the project.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, Greenway. This grant will allow us to connect two existing trails that are not connected right now on 200-plus acres along the Hudson River, Bristol Beach State Park. And we appreciate this. As you said, it is the second one. And Mark, under your leadership, the town of Saugerties joined Greenway, and you and Greenway have been a tremendous asset to our town since we joined. We're very appreciative. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Supervisor. Town of Saugerties was a big win. We changed hearts and minds with that one. The next grant is to the Winnicke Land Trust in Dutchess County, and they're one of our partners that is working on different segments of the trail that you just saw in Jeff's presentation. And this is for a Rhinebeck Trails project. And Greg Swansea, the Executive Director of the Winnicke Land Trust, is here to say a few words about the project.
Well, thank you, Mark. And first, I'd like to say, Mark, it's been such a pleasure to work with you over the years. It really has made such a difference to many projects I've been involved in, and it's very impressive what you've done. I also want to say that it's great that Scott is coming on. I really appreciate the continuity that it'll create, and it's been a pleasure working with Scott as well. I live in the Ronde out of Kingston, so the water trail goes right by my door, so it's good. This grant is really a wonderful one for us in northern Dutchess County because it helps us connect some of the other projects you heard about, Red Hook in Tivoli. We'll also be looking toward Hyde Park, who also I think is a recipient today. It's wonderful how we now can zoom in a little closer than Jeff's presentation showed, and actually help connect some of these communities and look at the details of how, what we need to do to get that done. I just add that this also leverages some private funding. So this grant helps us bring in funding from the Thomas Thompson Trust, and it aligns perfectly with, the Land Trust Alliance Conservation Partnership Program grants, which are EPF funding. So great combination. Thank you very much to the Conservancy.
Congratulations, Greg. The grant is for $14,800. The next grant is to the City of Troy up in Rensselaer County. This also follows up on a previous Greenway grant award, and this is for improvements to the Uncle Sam Bikeway, or actually more appropriately an action plan for improvements for the Uncle Sam Bikeway, which is a rail trail that's kind of hidden within the City of Troy. I heard somebody during the introductions from Capital Roots. Yes, sir. You want to say a few words about the project?
Thanks, Mark. Laura couldn't be here today, but she would certainly say thank you to the Conservancy for providing the grant. The Uncle Sam Trail is a true urban trail as it exists, and Capital Roots work with the City of Troy and Alta to develop a plan for improvements. We're hoping to make signage, wayfinding, and connection improvements on the trail so that it can become a community asset rather than a place that people avoid right now. Thank you.
Thank you. That grant is for $12,500. The next grant is to the Yorktown Trail Committee in Westchester County for the Mahansick Trail Construction Phase 2 project. And I believe this builds on a previous grant award that we had.
My name is Mark Linehan. I'm with the Yorktown Trailtown Committee, which is a local volunteer organization interested not just in trails, but also in helping economic development in the commercial area of Yorktown through publicizing and improving the local trails. For many years, over 2 decades, both the County of Westchester and Yorktown has had on its books books plans to build a trail from the North County Trailway into FDR State Park. And it's never happened. The plans were for a paved bike path, or at least the dreams were for a big paved bike path, and they could never get the money to do it. And that happened again last year. The town applied for a grant, couldn't get the money. So as an alternative, this group has worked with the town to come up with a plan for a mountain biking and hiking trail, unpaved. And it's in coordination with the Friends of FDR State Park, which is already building a trail from FDR State Park to a local road. There's a missing gap, though, a piece of town-owned land that's an old railroad's right-of-way. And that is not very long. It's about 3/10 of a mile. But it's a key gap in this connection from Yorktown Heights, the center of business in Yorktown, into FDR State Park. And it has a problem, which is it's got a stream and some wetlands. So building a trail in there is hard because of that. It involves several bridges and walkway, and that involves a lot of lumber. And so what this grant gives us is the money to build that, to buy the lumber that's needed to build the trail with volunteer labor and town help to do the rest of the work. So this is key to making this connector. And because of this, you'll be able to get from the North County Trail through FDR State Park, up a side neighborhood road to other town lands that get you east-west, almost to the border of Peekskill and Cortland. So it's the start of a east-west trail that should eventually, we would hope, connect to the Hudson River. So thanks very much for your support.
Wonderful. It's a great project. It's all about connectivity. FDR State Park is one of the most heavily visited state parks in the system in the Lower Hudson Valley, and this project will be a tremendous enhancement. So congratulations. That grant is for $12,500. The next grant is to the town of Rosendale in Ulster County. This is to create a wayfinding system between the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail and the hamlet of Rosendale. Jennifer Metzger is here today to say a few words about the project. Jennifer?
Hi, thanks very much. We're really grateful for the support from Greenway. It will allow us to implement the first phase of a wayfinding plan called Finding Rosendale that was developed through a collaborative stakeholder process last year and funded by the Ulster County Transportation Council. This first phase is really critical. It's going to greatly increase access to the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail, and by right now, people come to our town and have no idea where to park to get to the trestle. It's been pretty chaotic, and we're so happy to get that resolved. It's also going to really help increase connectivity between the trail and all of our natural, cultural, and historical assets in town. So again, we're very grateful. I want to just thank also our partners, the Wallkill Valley Land Trust, the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail Association, Christy and Michael, for your support. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. That grant is for $10,000. The next grant is to the Arts and Recreation Commission of Whitehall, Inc. This is up in Washington County, and they're looking to create a trail that goes from Fort Anne to Whitehall. The contingency from Fort Anne gets the award for the longest trip to this Greenway meeting, so thank you for coming from the Great North down here. And we have Marjorie Mon, Phil Smith, and Gretchen Stark.
Hi. I'd like to first introduce Gretchen Stark. She's a councilwoman from the town of Fort Anne. This is part of a larger project, and we're part of the Canalway Trail Working Group, and that trail will go, the Champlain Canalway Trail Working Group, and that will go from Waterford all the way up to Whitehall. So this money, and I thank you very much, it would be impossible to do this without you. This money will go for an assessment of our proposed project, and we could not do this without volunteers, and I congratulate all of you, the volunteers here and the staff. But thank you very much for this grant, and we're going to move forward on our trail. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thanks so much for coming. That grant is for $10,000. And again, that project up in Fort Anne is part of the connection study that we just saw Jeff Olson present.
The next grant is to the Columbia Land Conservancy, a great partner of the Greenways. Trails not only connect people to nature, but when you get them into nature, it's important to also connect them with the story that nature has to tell, and that's what this interpretive signage project at the Greenport Conservation Area is all about. Christine Vanderlyn is here from the Columbia Land Conservancy to say a few words about the project.
Hi. Thank you, Mark. You put it in a really great, succinct way right there. What our idea is for our interpretive signage at the Greenport Conservation Area. Greenport Conservation Area is our largest. It's over 700 acres. It's also one of our most visited of the 10 conservation areas we have in Columbia County. And so this opportunity to add this to the user experience and give people a way to learn about the wonderful habitats that they're passing through and the Hudson River shoreline and the estuary, as well as some of the cultural background to the site. We have remains of an old brickyard and a trail passes right near that. So we can kind of add that story into the experience for people at Greenport Conservation Area, and doing that in a thoughtful way with a real focused plan and creating a template for the kind of signage we could also add to our other sites. That's what we're going to do with the support of the Greenway. So thank you for that.
Congratulations. That grant is for $7,500. The next grant is to the town that we're in right now, the town of Hyde Park. This is to create an update to the Hyde Park Trails map, website, and a kiosk user guide. And we have Kathleen. Would you like to say a few words about the project?
I'd like to thank the Greenway for the award. It's going to allow us to actually create our own Hyde Park Trail website. Presently, the information on our trails is accessible through some of our through the town's website, the Recreation Department, under the Recreation Department, and also through some of our partners' websites. So this will allow folks to get a hold of our information on our trails. It will also allow us to update our Hyde Park Trail map, which will include our newest section, which is just about a year old, and that's the section up along the Greenway Trunk Trail from New York State Parks at Mills Norrie Park, heading south to the Scenic Hudson Dominican Camp property, which is just about a mile long. So that's the newest section of the trail that will be included in our new map and on our web. It will also allow us to create a new trailhead right there at Norrie Point Access Road, where the trail begins, and that kiosk will also include a couple of interpretive panels, including the map. So thank you again.
Congratulations. That grant is for $7,500. And again, that project is a great example of partnerships. The town, Scenic Hudson, State Parks, National Park Service, and many other organizations working on that trail over time to make it a success. The next one is to the Poughkeepsie Alliance in Dutchess County. This is for a waterfront connectivity project, phase 1.5. And Paul Kalogerakis is here today.
That's it.
Say a few words about it.
Very briefly, Poughkeepsie Alliance is a 2-year-old 501c3 public-private partnership. We have 28 members. They're made up of the anchor institutions in and around the city of Poughkeepsie, hospitals, colleges, utilities, the Chamber, the Poughkeepsie Journal, IBM, and a number of other private stakeholders who are vested in the future of the city of Poughkeepsie. Our mission is economic revitalization, to partner with the city of Poughkeepsie and provide capacity for them through a difficult time. We've completed a number of projects, including reclamation of parks for the Latino Youth Soccer League, opening up streets for better parking for town-down businesses, a number of public arts projects, and earlier this year, in partnering with the city of Poughkeepsie and with Scenic Hudson, they asked us to see if we could help getting around a 100-year-old nasty problem called Kale Rock. In order to connect the waterfront, our organization funded a private engineering study of the rock to see what was possible in order to create this ultimate connection. That's been completed, and this application for this grant will move this project that much further along so that ultimately we can have that connection that's been there and made people scratch their heads for a very long time. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and congratulations. The grant is for $7,000. Although I take exception to your categorization of Colorado Rock as nasty rock. Be careful. Yeah, I'm going to be careful about that. The next grant is the Walkway over the Hudson in Dutchess County. This is to do a new edition of the Greater Walkway Experience Map, which has been tremendously successful. Does anybody here say a few words about that project? Sally?
Yes. We're really very, very grateful for this opportunity. In 2009, the Walkway developed a vicinity map that really helped to promote Walkway over the Hudson and a loop trail that was in the vicinity. However, in 2012, thanks to Walkway, we really recognized that Walkway should play a greater role in the economic vitality of the area. And the Greater Walkway Experience was an effort on our part to really look at the neighborhoods surrounding the walkway on both the east side and the west side of the walkway. And of course, we know that today with both Dutchess County and Ulster County, the rail trails have just expanded, and it's just been incredible what it has done to the trail networks in these areas. And so it's become important to update and enhance the Greater Walkway Experience map and the loop vicinity maps. We distribute 50,000 of these maps a year, and these funds, together with what Walkway is doing, will be able to continue to promote these incredible trails that have been developed.
Great, thanks so much. That grant is for $5,000. The next grant is to the Mohawk Preserve, another one of our great partners for Mohawk Preserve Foothills Interpretive Signage Project. Again, connecting people to land, but also the land story. Eric Roth is here from Mohawk Preserve.
Yes, thank you. So this project will allow us to implement an interpretive signage plan for the Mohawk Preserve Foothills. This is a great property. It lies between the village of New Paltz and the Shawangum Ridge. It's 856 acres, including historic and working farmlands. The Testimonial Gateway, which is a romantic-era landscape created by the Smiley family, originally serving as a carriage road entrance to the mountain house, and also Humple Marsh, which is an important habitat for breeding birds and other wildlife. The signage forms an important component of our two planned trailheads, providing public access to that area.
Thank you, Eric. Congratulations. That grant is for $5,000. The next grant is to the Palisades Park Conservancy. This is to improve the Ice Caves Trail. Very unique trail experience in Ulster County and indeed the Hudson River Valley. Is there anybody here from the Conservancy? Say a few words about it. Or Carl, I know you know the Ice Caves Trail well. I'm just kidding. You don't have to say anything about it. It's a very unique project, and this will enhance that trail experience and repair some key walkways and railings that are needed for safe passage through those caves and trail. Grant is for $5,000. Next grant is to the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. This is for new Westchester trail maps. I know it's the time of the smartphone, but people, and hikers in particular, like to take paper maps with them. We have a representative here from the Trail Conference. Say a few words about the project.
Sure. My name's Jeremy Apgar. I'm the cartographer with the Trail Conference. The Trail Conference has, for over 95 years, been stewards of public lands, the trails that connect public lands and are on public lands. We have volunteers maintaining more than 2,100 miles of trail in Hudson, River Valley, Greenway area and beyond. And so a big part of what we do is maintaining and building trails, but another significant component of our mission is educating the public on how to safely and responsibly use the trails. And a big way that we do that is through the use of quality trail maps that we've been producing for quite a long time. Our maps like these that are printed on waterproof, tear-resistant Tyvek are sort of a standard for maps in the region. So what this grant will allow us to do is expand into areas of Westchester County, some of the parks there, working with park partners at Teatown Lake Reservation, Waterpound Ridge County Reservation, and some other areas, and provide some of these maps to people local in those communities as well as throughout the region to give better resources for that. So thank you very much to the Conservancy for this grant.
Congratulations, that grant is for $5,000. Next grant is to our partners at SUNY Hudson. This is to fabricate and install some interpretive signs that tell the story at Esopus Meadows Preserve and the Black Creek Preserve, both incredible resources for our region. Kate Burrows here to say a few words about the project.
Yes, thank you so much. We're excited about this project. And the signage is going to go in at Black Creek Preserve, which is going to be some arboretum-style signage, so letting visitors know about the local plants that are there. And then at Esopus Meadows Preserve, we're really excited. We're actually putting in a phenology trail, which is studying the seasonal changes at Esopus Meadows Preserve. So that is actually connected to a mobile app called Nature's Notebook, and it connects to the larger national phenology network. So we're hoping to get citizen scientists out there next spring collecting data to submit to the National Phenology Network. And these grant funds are allowing us to get some good, durable signs that will hopefully last for a very long time and that will allow anybody that comes to the park to collect data and to learn more about the plants in the area. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kate. And congratulations, the grant's for $4,900. The next grant is to the town of Kinderhook in Columbia County. This again is part of the trail presentation that you saw. This will contribute to it. This is for a Kinderhook Trail connection to the town park. And Gregory Seaman is here from the town of Kinderhook.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you to the Greenway. This connection goes from the town park, which is only accessible by motor vehicle, and that's where the principal gaming fields, sports fields are. It'll connect to the National Grid, the old electric railway, to the schools, the high school, middle school, grade school, down to Main Street, Valatia, through a wooded area, very beautiful area, along the Kleinkill Creek. It will be a valuable resource to the community, and more importantly, it's a link that we need to continue north on the electric railway. There's a bridge out there right where we cut into the town park, and then we could go north to Nassau and Rensselaer. Thank you again. We'll need that to establish the right-of-way to the town park.
Congratulations to the town of Kinderhook. Grants for $3,000. The next grant is to the town of Marbletown in Ulster County for the O&W Rail Trail map and brochure. If you ever go to the rail trailhead in Hurley, you will still see the original Greenway Trail logo that was done probably in 1992, which is great. One of the earliest designated Greenway trails. Supervisor Michael Warren is here to say a few words about the project.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Carl Bazzino. He has been heading up our O&W Rail Trail for many, many years. The O&W Rail Trail is a little bit more mature, especially in our town. People don't know it, but it goes from Kingston Point now, all the way through town of Ulster, city of Kingston, town of Hurley, into Marbletown, Rochester, Warsing, and eventually into maybe the other counties, and it may actually be an interstate trail someday. What we're looking at right now is that our partnership with Greenway goes back a long way. We have 8.6 miles of completed trail, including 2 bridges. We have a very mature trail. We're getting about 40,000 visitors a year. This is for a new updated trail map. It's going to be for the visitors, but it's also going to be for our partners in the other towns because it shows distinctly where the gaps are. So this is a good plan to move forward to get that O&W completed throughout Ulster County and then beyond. And we're looking at the interconnect between the O&W and the Walk Hill. I want to thank you very much.
Congratulations, Supervisor. That grant is for $2,000. And I think you made a great point that trails are not only assets for tourism, but assets and amenities for the residents and communities in which they're located. And the next grant is for just such an amenity, and it's to the town of Rhinebeck for a trailhead pavilion at the town of Rhinebeck Community Park. And,
I'll do that.
okay, Sally.
The Trailhead Pavilion is an important component to a 2.25-mile trail network at the town park. It will be providing restrooms and concession and a covered area for people to gather for educational programs and to learn about the two kills that join at the park. But more importantly, they also lead to the trail networks that will be worked on by the Winnicke Land Trust, which will lead throughout Rhinebeck and south to the Hyde Park Trail System and north into Tivoli and Columbia County on other trails that Winnicke has developed. So there are great connections being made, and I think it's great to know that at the town park there'll be a pavilion with restrooms for people to enjoy while they're on these miles and miles of trails.
Great, thanks so much, Sally. And I just wanted to make a housekeeping note for the board members. One great thing about this board is that you're all involved in so many different projects. But for the record, if you have any conflicts before we take the vote, please just verbalize any conflicts and recuse yourself from the specific projects in which you may have a conflict. But let's hear it for the grantees.
Before you say that, John Winthrop Aldrich would agree. Remember what Brocaster used to say? Money is like manure. It's much better if you spread it around. That's what you've done. And Mark, you've done an incredible job. Go ahead, sir.
That's right, 22 awards. It's just amazing. And just listen to all the testimonials. It's incredible to reach the Greenway and so many exciting things happening. So now we do is take a motion, and again, want to remind people that we do need to call for a motion that has recusals kind of weeded out. So does anyone need to verbalize that now? And Jane? Okay, so those two. Yeah.
I recuse myself for the Kingston grant.
Okay, for Kingston. And Socrates, okay. Any others? Oh, in the back, Jane? Walkway, okay, great. Any others? All right, so with that, I'd like to call for a motion. Stefan, second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so all those awards are now officially in the book, so that's great news. And now we do have, next on the list is a water trail designation in Germantown. Oh, yes, Wint. Absolutely. All is riotous living. Okay, so Town of Germantown Water Trail designation. Did you want to speak about that, sure. Scott? Okay.
Last year I got to go on a ramble event to a place I'd never been before, and it was so gorgeous and such a wonderful spot that I asked the folks if they would consider designating it. It's in the town of Germantown. It's Cheviot Park, and it is, if I was going to take somebody who was new to kayaking and they wanted to go out on the Hudson, that's where I'd take them because it's protected from a lot of the currents. Carrie Christian and Don Westmore are here from the town of Germantown. Carrie, do you want to?
Yes, sir. Scott, you totally nailed it. Sending out a beautiful spot. Germantown Westmore is a true waterfront park on the Hudson. That's the park which is already designated. And Cheviot was not. Scott pointed this out to me. We worked with the town. We're not going to pray. Westmore will agree with me. And Scott's right as always. If you wanted to try kayaking somewhere on the Hudson, it's a beautiful competing enterprise. Great access and protection on the large side. So it's Cheviot.
So we do need a motion for that designation. So again, this is for Conservancy members. Do I have a first? Jane, okay, second. Don, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that's, designation is now also official. We now have some kind of operational measures we've got to walk through here, beginning with new overtime provisions, accepting the findings of the audit, and bank district card resolutions. Is that all in one, or should we do them separately? Okay, so I'm going to bring Scott back up here, or Mark? Okay.
Conservancy employees are treated the same as council employees for purposes of salaries. We're on the management confidential system. And one of the things that's changing under federal law are overtime provisions. Starting December 1st, people who are making $913 a week, which translates to $47,476 a year, will be eligible for overtime if they work over 40 hours a week. Currently, it's $455 a week. We didn't have anybody making that, so we've never had an overtime policy. The policy that was included in your packet reads, generally overtime eligible employees grade MC15, which is a salary level, and below will not be permitted to work more than 40 hours per week. However, if special circumstances require an employee to exceed 40 hours in a week, approval of the executive director is required. And then it defines the payroll week as being from Friday to Thursday, which conforms to our payroll period. Can you just go through all of this and do one? Okay. So we're going to need a vote on that. The next thing is acceptance of the findings of the 2016-2017 Conservancy audit. Our public benefit corporation and our not-for-profit are audited each year by an independent CPA. Again, this year we did not have earned income rising to a level of needing a federal program audit, which is good news because it costs several $1,000s more to do one of those. The audits of the public benefit corporation, the not-for-profit, and the combined statements all received a clean opinion, an unqualified opinion from the auditor, and that's about it. We now need to also, because of the change with Mark leaving, we need to do new bank signature cards, and the banks require resolutions of the board, their resolutions be passed by the board. And the new signatories will be Kevin, Jennifer, Jane, and Beth.
All right, so we vote those three. So we'll do them separately as three different votes, I think.
You can do one vote, would be fine.
All the better, okay.
If anyone has any questions?
All right, great, thank you, Scott. So let's take the one vote then on those three operational measures. So this is again for Conservancy members. Do I have a first? Jane? Second? Stefan? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so all those resolutions are now accepted, which is great. And that, I believe, concludes the Conservancy business. So that now brings us to the National Heritage Area, and that's back to Chairman McHenry.
We'll make this very brief, and because we wouldn't have a heritage area without Mark. You really made this thing work. Is it the second edition of the Heritage Area Guidebook is available, 100 sites, and it's remarkably good work. It really is, and once again we thank you for that. And the other thing is that website launch, we don't really need to talk about that. The Ramble is going to be...
Well, the Ramble, it was the 17th annual Ramble, just happened in September. I'd like to thank Beth and Dan for making it one of the most successful Rambles ever, and of course our many partners. And I'd like to also thank Dan Jeanson and Wint Aldritz for doing such a great job, and Dan in particular for coordinating the development and production of the guidebook. Tremendous job, Dan.
All right, and the conference, the Landscape Conservation Conference, which is the day before Election Day, and that is at...
It's right here, November 7th. It's going to be examining the history of landscape conservation, and as we all know, that effort and environmentalism had its start right here in the Hudson River Valley. We're going to have a lot of speakers to examine the history, to examine current trends, and to also do a visioning session to articulate what the next 100 years of landscape conservation are going to look like in the Hudson River Valley. So it's right here, all-day event, November 7th. You can Google it, or you can go to the Benjamin Center at SUNY New Paltz's website and find out how you can register. It's only $20, and if you're having any anxiety about November 8th, come right here on November 7th and get have your spirit buoyed by conservation.
If you come, you'll see Fran Dunwell, Betsy Jacks, David Schuyler, Joe Martens, see, Carol Lee, Glenn Hoagland, and Steve Rosenberg, all the folks that have made all this work. And you'll be there.
I will.
And I think, what's the Secretary of the Interior visit?
Well, she's right there behind you. She was actually kicked off National Park Week right here in the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area on August 22nd at two events in the lower Hudson Valley, one at FDR State Park in Linda Cooper's region, and the other event in the Palisades region at Bear Mountain State Park. First event, we unveiled some National Historic Trail interpretive signs for the Washington Rochambeau Revolutionary Route. And the second event, we had a really engaging roundtable with the Secretary of the Interior and Commissioner Rose Harvey and Congresswoman Nita Lowey on historic preservation issues. And the Secretary of the Interior pledged to take the information that she heard at that roundtable discussion back with her to inform the NPS's approach to future investment in historic resource protection. So we are very pleased to be able to host her at those events.
Is there any other housekeeping, Mark, that we need to do? Is it, you have your report, of course.
Right. Well, you all have or emailed my final executive director's report. So that was my mic drop version of my executive director's report. I don't want to get into the details. You've heard most of the great updates. I'd just like to again thank the staff for being so great to work with over these many years. If it wasn't for their dedication and patience with me and hard work, none of this would be possible. So please join me in thanking the staff.
Any other public comment? Yes.
There's a crane on the Tower of Victory this week, so the repairs are beginning this week.
Yes.
The Tower of Victory at Washington's headquarters. A lot of people in the room have worked on that project, the fundraising project, and this week I spotted the first team of contractors on the building.
That's very good news. More to come on that. Thank you very much. And anything we can think of that you're patient, it's noon, it's over.
That's it.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah, that's like the,
I saw the cranes when I was running.